The Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
The heat wave continues in Norfolk and many other places. We've got blue skies this morning, some cotton wool cloud, and a little reprieve after temperatures of more than 30 this week, Chris. Today we've got a bit of a fresh wind, haven't we?
Yes, a lovely westerly breeze, quite strong this morning, and it's very welcome. During the latter part of last week, we had a quick shower here at High Asham, 6 millimetres of rain, which was very welcome, but at 10 o'clock the following morning, by magic it had disappeared. The ground just drank it up, and it hasn't really made any difference at all. So we continued cutting and mowing all the pollen and nectar fields because of the incredible fire risk. It was waist high, most of it, and it's all been cut, put through a tedder to knock the seeds off onto the ground, and then baled, and the bales are still here and ready to move. There's about a dozen on this 12-acre bit that we're standing on, so the yield is 1 bale per acre.
So no bales have been taken away here, this is all you've got?
This is it, yes.
Oh no.
Yeah, this is it. But they will go, because there's plants in here which are not edible for the horses to eat. They're quite coarse. One called knapweed, which is almost like wire, and there's quite a proportion of that. They'd all finished flowering, and we cut it as short as we possibly could, so it's down to lawn height. And if you look down on the ground, there's I just moved the any crop residue. You can see it's still flammable, so if a match or a flint got struck, or takeaway barbecue on here happened anywhere near, it would still burn, but not with the ferocity that would have been here. So we've removed the fire risk completely. And I do notice that many of the supermarkets have announced yesterday and today that takeaway barbecues are going to be removed temporarily from supermarket shelves really across the UK. So that's a really good news, because we're a little bit worried, obviously, down in Suffolk. There's some suspicion now that it was a takeaway barbecue that started the fire down at Dunwich. The local fire brigade has had a word with me and said, yeah, it's a huge risk. So we've eliminated...
You've had people on the land here,
yes,
haven't you?
I've got a black patch in one of the areas of Successional Woodland at the farm, and that was a really, really close shave, and it was just over a week ago, and just the only thing remaining now. I cleared the barbecue up, asked the people to leave as politely as I could, although there's a village near Brook called Seething, and that was what this Skinner was at the time. But anyway, I think I saved the day, and so it's just it's such a fire risk as the drought's continuing. I remember in 1976 it was similar conditions. Do you know what? That's 50 years ago this year, and I can remember it like yesterday, and went up. We'd finished harvest, and I drove up to the Peak District, and a lot of the leaves on the sycamore trees were already off, and it was about mid-August at that point in time. So trees can kind of defend themselves by going into what we call early autumn, and there's certain tree species which are not deep-rooted. Ash would be one, sycamore, which is a non-native, is another, and they're both quite susceptible. And another one, quite surprisingly, is beech, and that's beginning to show signs of stress. We've got lots of them at the farm here, because there's chalk underneath, and they're chalk-loving trees, high pH, and all the new growth on the mature trees is already turning brown as though it's early autumn. So they're beginning to take defensive action against the dry conditions.
But really, the trees and the hedges here, it's the only greenery we can see. The fields are all Sahara colour.
Yes, and sadly, some of this podcast is, I am going to have to smile a bit because over the years I've made a few mistakes. And I made one about, the most recent one is about a month ago. And if we stand up now and just go to the edge of this field, because on High Ash we've planted 26,000 hedging plants. I did mention that last week. And each year we add a little bit to the planting regime and divide these large arable fields up. This was all part of a 100-acre block, and the hedge along the top, planted in 2006, has taken really well because we got a lovely wet spring that year and it established beautifully. And in front of us are 750 hedging plants to divide this field up. And because the pollen and nectar was there, and I didn't want to drive on it, but basically I forgot that this hedge had been here 2 years and it needed some water. So this is cockup number 1. It's a row of dead saplings, all with the covers on them.
Oh dear, yes, they're all brown.
Yes, they've got the tree guard tubes on and they'd come out at the top beautifully. They were planted what we call whips, and they were just little single, mainly hawthorn, and every few yards some oak trees put in. There's one just down there in a tall guard, and it's to divide this field up into smaller sections because hedgerows are so important. We call them wildlife corridors. So the planting rate is 3 plants per metre, but in 2 rows, so they're kind of offset. And you can see this is brown and crispy. They're quite prickly. They've actually got established quite well. And one way of telling, there's a slight hope for them, because I've made a special machine for combat fire risk. It's a rapid discharge tank. It holds 3,000 litres. And I've driven down here and put some water on these in the last few days, although they're chocolate brown and crispy. And if I just run my fingernail down the stem on this one, unfortunately that's dead. A little sign that it could be alive would be if this new growth...
That's a slightly lighter colour brown.
Yes, ouch. They're very prickly. If I run my fingernail and just bruise it, if it turns up as green, then they stand a chance. And this is brown as well, unfortunately. So it looks not like good news. So it's slightly embarrassing, but, you know, with farming, you try things and sometimes they don't work, and you can learn as much by your mistakes, and in life as well, as you can by being successful. In fact, you often learn more because you learn what not to do. So all the way up here, this has all got to be done again, and that is a bit frustrating because they're in tree guards to protect them from rabbits, but the soil's quite fertile, and what I hadn't budgeted for, if you like, is to have quite a severe drought, which we've got this year.
In normal times, you could have quite easily left these.
Oh yes, it would have been all right, and they were successful. There's one here with a little bit of green left on it, and the next one too, but 90% plus have failed because of my neglect, if you like.
What about these oaks you've planted? Billing and cooing, the pigeons of High Ash Farm, among the cast of characters that we meet each week.
And I'm the next character that you're likely to meet on the Countryside podcast. And we've got a small favour to ask. There are certain costs involved which we can't avoid. What we're asking for is a small contribution to help the running costs of this podcast.
And you can find all the details on the High Ash Farm website, and you can make a monthly or one-off payment. Everything's gratefully received, and let's keep this marvellous slice of wildlife podcasting going with Chris Skinner and the pigeons.
Why not? Yes, it's absolutely fantastic. Oh, the oak is, we'll just walk down a little bit and have a look. And the other thing is when you plant anything as well, so this won't be unique to High Ash Farm, it will be right across the southern half of the UK.
And on the edge of motorways as well, where
Yes,
they plant these whips. No one really takes care of those, do they?
No, they have to fend for themselves. So you can keep the hedge bottom clean, which is what I did do. But then once the pollen and nectar started to grow up, you can see the remnants of it right next to the hedge, the pollen and nectar. It's tummy button height there. And this is a young oak tree. Let's have a little look. Take the leaves off that bit there.
Well, they're all brown, aren't they?
Yeah, and then just scrape away. If it's brown, it's dead. If it's green, no, it's brown. Yeah. So I just, oh, there we go. That's the secret. When it snaps like that, it's a goner. So that's now 5 feet tall, and it's in a square tree guard. Again, protect from rabbits and deer grazing it, because young oak's quite tasty if you're a roe deer or a red deer. So the protection worked in one sense, but not in another. So there we are. Now you know I've got a red face, but at least I admit to my errors. And there's 2 more what we call cockups on the farm that I'll take you and show you that mistakes I've made along the way. Oh, a lovely, it's a pied wagtail just out about 20 yards from us, just grazing, looking for insects on the floor of the pasture. That's the horse grazing, and it's shorter than most people's lawns. So when you look on the far side of the field, all over the farm we're feeding our winter rations. Another one this side, 4 horses on there, and they're busy tucking into the hay. And yet another one further down on the brow of the hill. The horses out on the pasture grazing. They're eating December and January's hay. So I think nationally there will be a bit of a shortage of fodder. There's bound to be now, and no second cut of hay this year, certainly at High Ash, because it's been so dry. There's been no regrowth, and so there we are. Slightly embarrassing, but I love to sort of share my mistakes and my successes with everybody, which is what the podcast is all about, and of course celebrating what's happening in the countryside at any given time. It changes so quickly as well.
Just a joy to see the swallows flying low over this fairly freshly cut field, isn't
Yes, yeah, they're everywhere. And last night, just at dusk, a real treat. I just came out to water some of the plants in the garden by hand, so hosepipe bans still in effect here at the farm. And the swallows had all gone to sleep in the barn just down the bottom of the farmyard, and they'd been replaced by bats, lots of pipistrelle bats, just scooching and darting about exactly in the same manner that the swallows were hunting them an hour or 2 earlier. And they're the swallows just skimming, almost miraculous, flying over the ground just 6 inches, 9 inches above the ground at high speed. Just scooching round, looking at it. It's such a lovely sight to see. So there's always things out in the countryside to make you feel good if you haven't made some of the errors that I've done. I'm smiling, so that's the important thing.
Chris quite likes to give me a vista to look at because he thinks I might get bored, which of course isn't the case. But we're up on another one of the wonderful viewpoints on High Ash Farm here, aren't we?
Yes, it's particularly high, again, getting very close to the 70 metres above sea level, which for Norfolk is pretty mountainous.
Well, I might have a nosebleed.
But it gives you a panoramic view of the layout of High Ash Farm and how the glaciers left it, and all these corrugations, these sort of false valleys that run at right angles to the river valley itself, with the River Tass on our left-hand side there. And then we're way up, having a sort of aerial view of the city of Norwich, just a couple of miles away to the north of us. Norwich Cathedral standing out proudly, County Hall as well. lots of people all working, and then here I am sort of just admiring the blue sky and the clouds sort of flitting over the top of us this morning, partial sun, partial cloud. It's absolutely glorious. And yep, so we're just looking at some of the cockups, I call it, the mistakes I've made over the years.
Mea culpa, this is today.
Yes. So it's all done with a smile on my face, but I have made some monumental blunders because I became interested in conservation probably 40 years ago now, and I thought, I realised I was so lucky to have this as my backdrop, my office, which is all the woodland on the farm, 13 areas of woodland, some of which are quite large, beautiful bluebell displays. The pollen and nectar fields now are sort of plastered with bee orchids and pyramidal orchids as well. So I thought the cereal prices were dropping away, and eventually I've stopped really producing cereals and sugar beet. And this year has proven me right, so that's a bit of a success story. Otherwise, I think would have hit bankruptcy pretty rapidly. The costs of growing the cereals, combining, the fertiliser and the fuel have all gone up, and the cereal prices are low. It just doesn't make sense. And this farm is particularly on the south-facing slopes, as we can see over there. There's sand and gravels over there, and the crops, well, there wouldn't have been any this year. So I decided to diversify and make a new project, a new business at the farm. Had all the leaflets done, and it was simply called Hideaway, and you could book one of the bird hives which was standing next to. It was one of 10 hides. They were all carpeted out, nice sort of rubber on the floor with carpets underneath, sound insulated. And all I've done from the 10 is 8 have been sold and gone. They're all beautifully built. And I just kept 2 for use on the farm. And the third one, I've cut the front out of it, and sparrows are using that as well. So every cloud has a silver lining. But what happened is I opened it up to the public, and I thought, right, I'm on a money spinner here. It was about £5 an hour to have a hide with all the feeders hanging in front. And wherever you were on the farm, I had done one underground, which is you could sort of be at ground level with the yellow hammers, a woodland bird hide, a farmland bird hide, and a wetland one as well, so you could look out over water, and the whole selection of it, because we've got all those different habitats here at the farm. And I was certain I was going to be, Skinner was going to be a winner, if you like. So this is one of the few remaining ones here. It's still in really good condition.
But we've been in there, haven't we, already?
Yes, we
several
have,
times this year?
Yes, I've closed it down because I hadn't reckoned on what was going to happen in the hides, and it's slightly distasteful, particularly if you're having your breakfast. After about 10 days of opening it up, we had just a few customers, but not many. People weren't prepared really to pay back then, and it's 25 years ago, to come and watch birds. It's changed a lot now, but open the hide just to get them all cleaned out and use a dustbin and brush or a little mobile vacuum cleaner that I bought. And since I opened the door on 1 or 2 of them, the smell inside was absolutely dreadful. And I know it's distasteful, but what happened is people had rented the hide and didn't want to open the door and disturb the birds on the feeders, and used the hide as a toilet, to be polite. And I was so distressed. I had to do it every week, and of course it got into the carpet in places when it ran off the rubber matting floor. And of course it was impossible to get it out, so I had to take the carpet out. I did recarpet 2 of them, but then the same thing happened to a completely different hide. Lots of different people were using it, and so I realised that it just didn't work like that. It was causing me more work and than the income coming in from it, which was quite minimal. I had hoped it would really take off and be successful, but they're sound insulated, so you're kind of in there and you can talk. And so that was cock-up number 2, if you like. So I sold 8 of the hides. There'd been a lot of work gone into them, and they were still like brand new underneath. They were 4 years old before I sold them. One-way glass in them, and you'd think it was a money spinner, but not so. Then the second cock-up is right where we're standing here. This is one of the hides in front of us, and this is 5 acres of newly planted woodland under stewardship. It's actually 4 acres, and there's an acre close to where we're standing, all joined into one block, which is what's called a carbon offset planting, and it was planted in 2006. And although we have a woodland here called Notre Dame wood, planted by the children of Notre Dame School in Norwich, that's a hectare, 2.5 acres, and this one is 1 acre extra on top of the 4 acres of woodland under stewardship, and it's completely separate. And I agreed to donate an acre for the carbon offset for some of the children at Notre Dame School that flew to China, and they wanted to offset their flight just for the 12 children that went and came back, and they worked out that they would need an acre of woodland for, wait for it, for 105 years to offset just for those children that went and came back. And I think there was 325 people on the flight, and that gives you an idea about how much carbon we release when we fly and come back to long distance flight, international flying. And so, like an idiot, I'd agreed with the school and the management and donated this acre, and I didn't kind of think it through, but it's been going 20 years this year.
And it's good habitat here,
It's
isn't it?
fabulous, yes, so don't get it wrong, but nothing has really changed. If anything, flying has increased, and the way, sort of families, if you had one car at a family when I was born, my father and mother were quite unusual in the village. They had a car. Many of the people resident in Cases and Edmonds didn't have cars. You used bikes or walked, and it's become very different now. And so the pollution we're producing is increasing, if anything. Even with electric cars, you've still got to generate the electricity and transport it to where your charging point is, and we're still using a huge amount of energy, particularly with flights, with some forms of travel as well. And I think we're just beginning to realise the change in that. We only had 10 millimetres of rain in the city of Norwich during the week, and it's been dry for a month or so. Then that water washed off into the River Wensum. It's only a couple of miles from here, and it was so polluted that it's actually killed the fish in the River Wensum, and I think 3,000 fish were pulled out dead yesterday from the centre of Norwich. And just to show how pollution in various forms, noise pollution, atmospheric pollution, still has a huge effect. So although this habitat is fabulous, and there's 5 acres here, 2 hectares, and I wouldn't swap it for the world, but to carbon offset one day's carbon emissions from Norwich Airport, which is about 12 miles away, the whole farm would have to be planted out with trees just to cover a day's carbon offset.
Wow.
So you're talking a square mile of woodland.
So the mistake,
for 100 years.
The mistake then is that actually it's not a feasible thing, that actually it's the tail wagging the dog, if you pardon the expression,
Yeah,
Rat.
well, Rat's sitting beside us, and he's just been chasing bumblebees, so I had a job not to laugh while we were talking just then. So, yes, it's exactly that. So I think we have got to stand back and realise that, try and understand the components of climatic change, whether it is all the fossil fuels we're burning, whether it is our behaviour, that I still can't, I'm not a scientist, so I can't answer that correctly, but I'm just beginning to get worried that since I've been farming, which is for a long time now, the climate certainly has changed, and I think most farmers of my age, you know, in their 70s now, would actually agree with that we seem to be having these huge changes, either too wet or too dry. It's becoming more extreme, and as we've got the Atlantic to one side of us, if we do warm the climate up, we'll have more evaporation from the surface of the oceans, and then it can alter the rainfall patterns as well. So we've got a long way to go in understanding the world that we live in, and I suppose having all this habitat here at the farm has made me realise that the world is still a really very special place, and with all the different forms of wildlife, be it insects, be it the wildflowers, the mammals that live here at the farm, and it's all become a little oasis because there's Norwich on the horizon there. Oh, a plane just going down behind the cathedral. I can see just going to land. We might get another glimpse of it just to the left of the Norwich Cathedral, just as there it goes, it's now dropping down, just perfect.
And this is by no means a busy airspace here, compared with if you're in Hounslow in West London or something like that.
And thinking of building even more aircraft terminal points for them to take off, for example down at Heathrow there, so a lot more development, and we're putting houses in places perhaps where we shouldn't put them.
The problem is with the houses, there's a big population, you need more houses,
yes,
but also our generation are the luckiest in history. We travel broadens the mind, and we can go anywhere we like, and we've got used to this.
Yes, that's the whole thing, and we might be being too greedy, and particularly if other countries have to pay the price for our greed, things like the low-lying countries, Bangladesh, for example, which is susceptible to flooding. And my father's been around the world twice on a boat, and I think he was very appreciative of how other countries other than ours, you know, spend the life sort of and that's something we'll investigate in a minute on our next stop when we visit one of the trees which has got a long history going way back in time, and that's how it got its name, and we'll explore that in a minute or two. So come on, let's get back in the truck. That's enough of my cock-ups for 1 week.
Rat's eager to get on.
So carbon offset woodland is a big no-no. We've got to change our ways of doing things, and there's no way 105 years that you could undo the damage for those 12 children, and bird hides on your farm with public access is really questionable. So
but the deer and the birds and all the other wildlife love this very dense woodland.
Yeah, no, it's completely the right thing to do.
Come to the other side of the farm now. Just a bit more greenery here.
Yes, Matthew.
Not much. Some.
No.
It's mainly due to the plants you've got there.
Yes, really. Again, overwinter wild bird seed mix, and fat hen, star of the show, and perennial sow thistle as well, and lots of sunflowers all facing away from us because we're on the west side of the field. It's a huge area of arable land. I came here quite early this morning, and there are hares grazing out all over the aftermath of the hay crop. My neighbour's vining pea field, which unfortunately failed and has been left in the field. It's 30-odd acres of vining peas there.
That's probably a couple of years in a row, that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's failed, and that's south-facing slope again. Really, really difficult conditions this year for farming. Rats come and sort of seen us. He just sniffed round the corner of the field. A few too many thistles for him to go in there, so he's a little bit fed up with this behaviour. Anyway, Rat, we've got something a bit more interesting here.
He's going back in the car.
This is...
No, here he comes, here he comes.
Cantley Hill Plantation, this area of woodland, 12 acres. And on all the corners of the woodland, it's quite ancient woodland, are special trees. And they're rather neglected, really, in the fact that it's a British native tree and it doesn't really get much attention. The oaks, the ash and the beech really steal the limelight, and this tree is really at its northernmost limit. It covers quite large areas of Central and Southern Europe, and from about Norwich southwards and westwards, this tree is much more common. Anything north of us, where we're standing, most of the ones that you'll find out in the countryside in woodlands have been planted by man. And it's hornbeam. We have mentioned it before, and it's just interesting that all four corners of the wood are marked out with these old trees, which look hundreds and hundreds of years old. The trunk is gnarled and twisted, full of fissures. It just looks very ancient. And yet it's a beautiful, beautiful tree. It forms big sort of sweeping branches high up in the canopy, and this time of the year it's rather special. There's a lot of controversy about how it got its name, hornbeam. The wood is about the hardest UK wood that you can actually have. It's actually harder than oak. It's used for musical instruments. Before we used coal, it was used for smelting iron. You can burn it and it burns really hot, so enough to melt iron. And then we started mining coal, and the trees just got forgotten about from that aspect. But carpenters tended to steer clear from it because it would blunten their tools. The wood is like horn, so you can't really make furniture from it. It's a kind of creamy yellow wood, so very slow growing.
So its hardness, is that a clue to why these were put on the corners?
Yes, probably. I don't know the exact reason, but it's a fair guess that they are very resilient and they can stand wind. They're just absolutely amazing trees.
It's blowing a hoolie just on this very exposed point here,
because the
isn't
wind's coming down the side of the wood. If we just take a few steps this way, we'll be out of the wind a bit. It's amazing how the edge of a dense woodland channels the wind. Now, I brought you here because at this time of the year, it does something interesting. It produces its seeds, and the seeds are a great favourite of some of our native birds. One's the hawfinch. We have visiting winter birds that are chaffinch lookalikes, and they're called brambling. And the seeds are produced in little bracts that hang downwards, so we can walk up to the tree. We've got some low branches here, and actually have a look. Here's a nice one, and each little bract has two little nut seedlets inside it. So if you pull one off like that, there it is, and then we just look inside, and they're the two nutlets, and they will separate like this. The seed cases, the bracts that hold them, it's just separated nicely. Really beautiful. I'll see if I can get Laura Cuffin to take a picture of this for us. And then these drop on the floor, and they have a strange habit of not germinating for 18 months. So they lay on the woodland floor, and they're slow growing, and they look, right from the word go, they look, the young trees look quite ancient, like the parent tree here. But they do seed, and the seed drop on the ground. It's so dry at the moment, the seedlings are quite hard to find. And I was talking about all the different trees that we have on High Ash Farm, and I mentioned the hornbeam to one of the regular walkers on the farm who lives right on the farm boundary at Stoke Holy Cross, and he seems to think that hornbeam comes from the beam that joined oxen together. So you use this hard wood, you cut a plank out of it with 4 holes in, 2 each end, and it fitted over the oxen's horns, and therefore became hornbeam.
Like a yoke.
Yes, exactly that, a yoke that joined the cattle together, because before we were using horses to do the ploughing, which went through the 16, 17, 18 and early 1900s, then taken over by tractors once we discovered fossil fuels. Oxen did all the ploughing in the British native, out in the countryside.
You needed strong timber for that.
Absolutely, and so he seems to think it was hornbeam, and he said, anyway, he invited me down to his garden. He said, I want to show you some trees in my garden. It's on the edge of High Ash. It's right on the ridge of the original River Tass. There's a steep gravel bank, and so I said, okay, next time I'm passing I'll drop in. But I did that, and he took me into the garden, but we only did 10 steps in, and on his garden wall was a row of pots, and he'd been growing bonsai since he was a young man. And bonsai comes from a Japanese word, bon meaning a pot or a dish, and sai means to grow. So it's growing trees in pots or dishes. And he had oak, hornbeam, field maple that he'd got from the farm here, little seedlings growing underneath it he'd find, or anywhere else he'd got them, and he's been growing them for over 50 or 60 years in these pots. They were absolutely beautiful, and when I looked at his collection that he'd got, I suddenly had an idea that I've got hornbeam and he hadn't. So I walked through the undergrowth. Now if we walk round this tree right round to the other side, I found something on the woodland floor, and we walk just round here. The leaves are on the hornbeam are really unusual. They've got teeth on the edges of them, like this, little, like a double saw-edged tooth on the leaves, and they're much rougher than beech tree leaves. So often hornbeam get confused a little bit with beech. But if we crouch down here and just come through onto the woodland floor, there's seedling bramble here, which if you touch that one, it's quite prickly on the underside.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Now this one over here is a baby hawthorn tree, and that's probably 2.5 years old. It's so slow growing.
It's only, yes, an inch and a half at the most off the ground.
And you can see this lovely double-edged tooth on the leaves there, and it's quite sort of rigid. It feels as though it's been there forever. Anyway, I found 2 or 3 of them, and I've managed to get a trowel underneath them, dug them up, although it's absolutely tinder dry.
So that's a hawthorn, did you say?
No, hornbeam.
Hornbeam.
Hornbeam. That's the only one he hadn't got in his collection. So I rooted up 2 or 3 of them. I found there's lots growing under the tree here.
The tree's fighting back here in this wind.
It's just giving you a whiplash in the wind. And I took them down, and I said, hey, I've got something for you. And his face lit up. You'd thought I'd given Stuart, his name, the crown jewels. And his wife said later he disappeared into the garden, and they're already in his bonsai pots, and he's going to bonsai them. And so I couldn't have made it up. So he was absolutely fascinated with them. So it's going to have a go at bonsaiing a British native hawthorn tree. So it is a British native, so that means it made it here to the UK sometime after the Ice Age, 10,000 years ago. Oaks and elm and ash made it much earlier into the British countryside, and hornbeam is a rather later arrival, probably only been here about 5,000 years, but basically it's in the southern half of the UK, sort of goes across to Cornwall, somewhere like that. It's a diagonal across our country, but this is an important time of year for it, and it's a tree that's often neglected, and you can see these bracts here which hanging down with the little nutlets. You know, beech has this year's another good year, what we call beech mast, a mast year, and the hornbeam here is also producing masses and masses of seed, some of which are already on the woodland floor right beside us. This one's dropped down. You can see the 2 little nutlets in the tips there, and each seed bract has about 20 of these little seeds in, so there'll be lots of them and you can pull them off one by one, and with these long little bract cases that surround the seed itself, the wind can catch them and blow them some distance from the tree, so they don't all land underneath the parent tree where they can't really grow because it's shaded so much. But there we are, a tree that's often neglected and overlooked, and it's gnarled and twisted. Don't look at me like that, because
I think it's quite picturesque, actually.
It actually is, isn't it? So I'm looking forward in my latter years to see if Stuart manages to get the bonsais to grow with British native hornbeam. Wonderful.
All that remains this week is to look at some of the correspondence, and Tina says we're thrilled to welcome back a flock of these chatty starlings, new to our high Lelandii, sharing with our sparrows and pigeons, sunset serenades and juggling for bedtime branches. Quite fun. The starlings are yet to find our cool waterfall to the pond to bathe in, though, so our swifts have returned home. That's a question. Do we call their UK nest site as home, or is it home in Africa? What do you think? I mean, that's a conundrum, isn't it?
Yes, it is a conundrum, but certainly their home is Africa. So they're one of the latest insect-eating birds to arrive, usually about mid-May, and mid-August is the average departure date, and many have gone already, certainly by mid-July. So their home, we can call it Africa, but they spend a huge amount of time flying back to Africa. They could do it in a day or two or three, but they tend to wander about in northern Europe and follow the insects as they fly southwards. So the most aerial bird in the world, but Africa is going to have to be their home.
And Tina, well, she misses them, and there's a lovely photograph there of the birds, but she misses the swifts, but now she's got the starlings to enjoy.
Yeah, and we're finding that at the farm now as the flock's beginning to build up. And this, of course, is the time of the year when birds start to form flocks, and the jackdaws and rooks all roost together. The starlings are just beginning to form their murmuration flocks.
And here's one from Terence, who's in Dorset. He says, we're baling the last of our 100 acres of late hay. We've been organic for decades, have acres of wildlife buffer strips. It's been difficult to sleep, though, as the whole farm is tinder dry. And just over the hedge, a glamping site's been burning wood fires frequently. This happens every year. Bizarrely, our fire services cannot intervene unless our farm catches light. And there's a exclamation mark there.
Yes.
Dorset, like many places, is plagued with field and wildfires. Your experience with people lighting fires illustrates how vigilant we need to be, and in our case, how mad it is that we're in this helpless, avoidable position. To quote you, prevention is better than cure, and he says keep up the good work there. From Terence, a farmer in Sturminster, Newton.
Yes, well, thank you for that. And so it's caused us some work here this week, and mowing during the week all the last of the pollen and nectar to reduce the fire risk here at the farm. It's all in the bale now, so I've done all we can, but I've designed a rapid discharge 3,000 litre water bowser that fits on the front of the tractor, and we can refill it really quickly, and that means we don't have to get out of the tractor, and I can discharge it over the top of flames by driving through a fire if I have to with the JCB. But it's quite a clever piece of kit, and so there's no aeroplanes available at short notice, so the thing about fires is you have to act really quickly to stand any chance of quelling them, and a sort of normal fire extinguisher, handheld or a hose pipe, just won't do the business. So we have a 10,000 litre bowser on standby, full all the time in the farmyard, and together with that bowser that I've had made, then we've done all that we can. But
I suppose you're scanning the horizon all the time for smoke, or
Absolutely.
maybe sniffing the air.
No, it's the smell that does it, and that's what gave the game away last week, that I could smell sausages and bacon coming through one of the areas of woodland.
And you thought, Gudgin's here.
I knew, yes, I knew exactly what it was straight away, and dealt with it, and I've just got the small black patch in the Successional Woodland to show the results of what could have been 5 acres of destroyed woodland if we were lucky. But thank you, Terence, for those comments. They're much appreciated.
Keep the comments, questions, anything else you like to send us along, keep them coming in. Chris@highashfarm.com. And, well, you're not too optimistic about the weather forecast. I'll say keep doing the rain dance.
Yep.
And you never know, next week, this time next week, we could be doing the backstroke across these fields.
Well, I'm not sure about that. Yes, it's more stocking up on the factor 50 at the moment, I'm afraid. We've got another heat wave coming in the week ahead.